It's Monday, the 16th of December, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes. Let's go. Story number 1. Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers says new appointees to the Reserve Bank Interest Rate Setting Committee could happen as soon as today, as he highlighted the government's economic credentials following last week's somewhat surprising drop in the unemployment rate to 3.9%.
He certainly was crowing about that extraordinary result, but he wouldn't be drawn about when the Reserve Bank will cut interest rates. Of course, a lower unemployment rate does nothing to add to the argument that we need to cut rates. In fact, it does the opposite. On the new interest rate setting committee, Dr. Chalmers said he'd had collaborative discussions with his opposition counterpart, Angus Taylor. He said he also hosed down speculation of an election early next year, saying that the government's working on a March 25 budget. Now, if the government's in caretaker mode, like if it's called an election, it won't hand down a budget. Dr. Chalmers rejected suggestions that the timing of the next election could depend on the potential for an interest rate cut in the first half of next year.
The other big issue that was being discussed over the weekend, Sean, Dr. Chalmers, it wasn't quite so positive about opposition leader Peter Dutton's nuclear plans.
Nah, a brief recap. The coalition claims its nuclear power plant will cost $331 billion, $263 billion less than Labor's renewable plans over the next 25 years. Peter Dutton released the costings of the option on Friday. It's based on the goal of net zero emissions electricity by 2050 under the coalition's model. Renewable energy, still the dominant source, 54%, but nuclear would provide 38% to the national electricity market. Under the government's policy, about 94% would be renewables. Really, it's costings which is driving the debate at the moment. Dr. Chalmers yesterday said the only way for the opposition to achieve its costings would be to shrink the economy. Basically, he said it's ridiculous to think that the economy will need less power in the future. So he wasn't really, a fan of the opposition's costings.
No, doesn't sound it. Sean, story number 2, things are winding back for the summer break in the auction market. Though having said that, there were still more than 2,000 homes up for sale last week, and in a reversal of most of the year, Melbourne is now looking stronger than Sydney.
In fact, just on this week's auction preliminary clearance rate, Melbourne was the number one capital city across the country. I don't think that's happened all year. Adelaide normally wins that. It was down to 63%. Melbourne came in at 69%. Sydney, 63%. As we said last week, the market is ending with a whimper, but still prices have risen by 5.5% over 2024, according to CoreLogic. Shows that housing markets do more than just rise and fall on rates. Supply and population growth matters as well, and those two factors have been keeping pressure on prices all year.
Okay, moving on to story number 3, cash, Sean, isn't going anywhere, with the Reserve Bank saying it is committed to lowering merchant card payment costs and ensuring cash is a viable means of payment for shoppers and businesses.
One of the Reserve Bank's assistant governors, Brad Jones, says Australia's payment system is world-class, but a concerted effort's needed to keep it that way. He said cash remains an important means of payment for many people, particularly more vulnerable members of society. He said it remains an important store of value, particularly during periods of economic uncertainty, and aids the resilience of the overall payments system. For these reasons, the government and the bank are committed to supporting access to cash. That happened as the ACCC, the competition watchdog, issued a draft determination basically saying the Banking Association, the banks, the retailers, supermarkets, Aussie Post can work together to ensure the future continuity of cash in transit services.
Story number 4. Consulting giant McKinsey, Sean, out of the US, will pay US $650 million, which is about $1 billion Aussie, to end a criminal investigation by the US Justice Department into the company's role in bolstering sales of addictive pain pills.
In what officials describe as a landmark case, US attorneys in Massachusetts and Virginia filed charges of conspiracy to misbrand a drug and obstruction. It comes from McKinsey's work advising Purdue Pharma on how to turbocharge sales of the blockbuster opioid OxyContin. State and federal officials allege Purdue helped kickstart the nation's opioid crisis in the late 1990s and 2000s by aggressively marketing the drug to doctors while downplaying its addiction risk. It marks the first time a management consulting company has faced criminal charges related to work with the opioid industry. According to a report in the Washington Post, the agreement adds to more than or nearly $1 billion that McKinsey has already agreed to pay to settle lawsuits from states, local governments, school districts, health insurers, and benefit plans. In a statement, McKinsey said it should never have worked with Purdue.
Last one, story number 5. Sean, how about this? Bloomberg has put together its annual edition of the richest families in the world. And unfortunately, the Aylmers and the Thompsons were not on the list, Sean. But back at number 1, after an 80% rally in the price of retail giant Walmart this year, is the Walton family.
62 years after the first Walmart opened, the family is now worth $432 billion. Sam Walton died in 1992. He divided his fortune among his children to maintain family control. That really has helped keep wealth in the family. At number 2 was last year's number 1, the Al Nahyan family from Abu Dhabi. Families presided over the oil-rich emirate for 3 generations. Number 3 is the Al Thani family in Qatar, oil again. The Hermes family, the French clan famous for their luxury goods, comes in at number 4. Rounding out the top 5 are the Koch family, 4 brothers there, inherited their father's oil firm. Now they own all sorts of things.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It is Monday, the 16th of December, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.